Hi guys, welcome back. EricUK here with a new game review. This one for the recently released Primeval role-playing game. This is produced by Cubicle 7 and is licensed product. It allows you to role-play in the universal timelines of the Primeval TV series. Primeval. If you don't know what Primeval is about, basically it was a ITV counterpart to try and draw people away from the BBC's Doctor Who. And the concept of it is that for some reason there are anomalies that have begun to appear seemingly with more frequency now in the early years of the 21st century that link the present primarily to points in the distant past, in prehistory. There are a handful that lead into the future, but they are much rarer. And the problem that you have is that prehistoric creatures seem drawn to these anomalies, these portals, and they cross through into the modern world. And when this first happens, at the beginning of the first season, a group of random people get drawn together and help a government agent, agent's not quite the right word, but basically find the dinosaurs and get them back, or get it back into the past. At which point they become a group because they work out that these anomalies are going to be reappearing and appearing and appearing, and it's their job to basically contain the fact that there are prehistoric creatures running around, and preferably to send them back through the portals, because you don't want to screw around with the timeline. And unfortunately that's what happens as things go along. There are predestination paradoxes that are caused. They do weird things that just, because these anomalies are magnetic and things go flying through them, and it affects the timeline, and the present changes, characters change or disappear. The future alters like 4 times because of things they're doing, and there are conspiracies and people up to no good trying to use these anomalies for their own ends. And that's the premise of the show. You don't know what's caused these anomalies, and you don't know what exactly is causing things to shift. In the Primeval RPG, you can play people working out of the ARC, the Anomaly Research Centre from the show. You could play dinosaur hunters who are looking for these portals to hunt dinosaurs. You could be an illegal team, maybe somebody trying to use these anomalies for your own ends. You could be part of a conspiracy, or one really random idea is that you could be Vikings. You got drawn to an anomaly and are now trying to find your way home, fighting past world serpents and all sorts of things. So you've got a whole world that you can play with, and because of the nature of the show, because things alter because of the way people have done things, it doesn't really matter how stuck into the canonical TV series you are. Mechanically then, as run through the system is a point buy. You get so many points to spend on your character. You have a series of stats, you have a series of skills, and you can spend points on those. There are traits, both good and bad, which gives you points, again, that you can spend or what have you. And the dice rolls are 2 dice plus a relevant stat and a relevant skill. It's exactly the same system, bar 1 or 2 tweaks to Cubicle 7's Doctor Who Adventures in Time and Space RPG. In fact, I would consider this to be a version 2 of that system, because there's things in here that I think would have been really awesome had they been in the Doctor Who RPG, but I'll come to those. Once you've done character creation, you then have to build your facility, and basically your facility is wherever you're based. You get 3 good traits for it and a bad one, and you can take multiple bad ones to increase the amount of good things you've got in your thing. And they are things like having a medical bay, a laboratory, a vehicle pool, an armoury, piece of future technology, And the bad things can be something like you've got the boss from hell, who's always going to, regardless of whether how good you do or whatever, he's always going to be breathing down your neck and making a pain in the arse of himself. You could be on an anomaly fault line, so you're busy daily because these things are popping up here, there, and everywhere. And that works quite nice because everybody has to work together. Because you can't just go, one person can't just go, right, I want an armory. Everybody has to agree what's in the facility. And then, as I say, the system is really basic. You just roll 2 dice, relevant stat, relevant skill, any other modifier. The combat system is quite nice. Essentially, whenever damage is dealt, the GM decides what it would affect, and it reduces stats. When a stat gets to 0, you suffer some kind of penalty. When you get 2 stats to 0, obviously you're in a really bad way. If 3 stats go down, then you're dead. So, and it doesn't necessarily always have to be physical damage. One of the examples is your presence, which is like your cool factor, or how well you come across to people, could take a hit if something like a Dilophosaurus vomits over your shoulder. And then, if you don't get it sorted and washed and you change your clothes, when you go to a date with your girlfriend that evening after dealing with the anomaly, you whiff a bit of dinosaur vomit and it lowers your presence. And I quite like that as a concept. Additional rules for this, then, that aren't in the standard Cubicle 7 system, is you have points that the GM keeps track of, which are exposure points and temporal damage points. And what happens is, whenever the characters do something and they don't cover it up well enough, they accumulate exposure points. Likewise, if they do things to mess up the timeline, and pretty much everything you're going to do is going to mess up the timeline, because that's kind of what happens in the show, it adds up. And what it suggests is that every 3 scenarios, the GM rolls 2 dice, adds the relevant points, and sees on a chart what happens. So for the exposure, it could be that you've missed something, and there's a a newspaper article about strange monsters sighted in the Forest of Dean, or it could be completely blown open. If you really, really screw it up and you don't cover your tracks, suddenly it could be on the news worldwide that there are dinosaurs roaming the countryside. And pretty much then you've got to deal with the aftermath of the panic and the chaos and everything else that happened. So your characters want to try and keep everything under wraps. Likewise with the temporal damage, you roll on that, and it could be, if you get a really low roll, you've done a good job of trying to maintain the integrity of the timeline, you might actually remove all the damage you've caused, and everyone gains experience points because they've done it. Likewise, if you get high rolls, things change. It may be that a character is forced to swap some stats around because they're not the same person they actually were prior to whatever you did. But if you get a really bad roll, it could be that someone is completely erased from the timeline. And the very top end of it is the universe collapse. Time and space just goes pop, and that's it. Everything's gone, you've lost. And I quite like that because it prevents characters from just going in guns blazing. Because if you kill the Triceratops now on the streets of London, it's not there to be eaten by a predator later on. That predator goes and eats something else, and effectively, obviously things so far back aren't so bad. You do things nearer to the current timeline, it affects things worse. But it's a nice mechanic because it stops you going out and just shooting everything. You actually want to get these dinosaurs, or whatever they are, back in. You get a nice bestiary. It has a good number of creatures from the show, ranging from things like the giant centipede, millipede thing from the first season, through to T-Rex, Giganotosaurus, mosasaurs, pteranodons. You haven't got a big bestiary, but you've got enough to cover what you're going to want to start with, and it gives you a decent set of rules. So if you want to basically take these and create your own dinosaurs or whatever, you also get a nice section on the future, and it gives you the future predators and the things that have effectively wiped out mankind. Because that's one of the other problems you've got. We know from the show, and as it goes on in here, at some point over the next few decades, mankind becomes extinct. We get wiped out. And you've got the things that could possibly have done it. that have appeared in the show. Megaopterans, future predators, the Mer, so on. Although not necessarily the Mer. And it gives you an idea of what happens to the Earth after us, through various future epochs. And that's it in a nutshell. You also get a rather nice introductory scenario. Very simple. You can transpose wherever you are. They've done a really nice thing on this because it has two sort of like little note sections with each chapter or scene that you've got. And one of them is for new GMs. You know, you pick this up because you like the show and we'll play this. It gives you some good ideas on how to run a particular scene or the scenario as a newbie. And then you get an advanced bit where it suggests things that you could do to make it more interesting, providing that you've got a better grasp on role playing and GMing and so forth. I really like it. I had originally intended just to buy this particular book because I wanted dinosaurs for my Doctor Who RPG game. But after showing this to my mates last night, they actually sat down and rolled some characters up, and next week we're actually going to do a test game. I'm going to run the scenario from the back of here, and we're going to see how it goes, which I will report back on another bit, I think. It will be interesting to see what they do with this. There are certainly new books I would like to see. I would like to see a bestiary of more dinosaurs. I would like to see a guide to the Ark. An equipment guide wouldn't be quite so a bad idea, because the equipment you get in here is very minimal. But I think they've got some scope that they could play with for future source books and supplements. As a rating wise, out of 10, I'm going to give it an 8. I might have been tempted to give it a 9 had there been more dinosaurs in it, rather than, because there's probably about 8 in this, and that's it. If they'd given you a bit bigger of a bestiary, and they'd given you a slightly bigger equipment section, I think it would have been a 9. But if you're interested in the show, if you're a fan of the show, or just this kind of game in general, then I recommend it. It would be a good choice. Anyway, thank you for watching. Please leave any comments, what you think, and take care and good gaming.